When I was looking for a new lens for my camera, I wanted something that is affordable, has a similar focal length as my old 28mm lens, and is a good all-rounder for photos and videos, since I only want one lens to be on my camera all the time. After some research, I bought the MEIKE 25mm f1.8 lens. And even though I was happy with the performance of this lens, I noticed that pictures taken with an f1.8 aperture are just not usable at all. As a consequence, I proceeded to buy the MEIKE 28mm f2.8 as well, hoping that similar problems would not exist on this model and I could use all available apertures. And I could. But what I ended up with are two very different little lenses that are worth a fair comparison because they have very different characters. This is what this video is about. If you want to have more information to the individual lenses, make sure to check out my separate reviews on them before this video. You are watching a little sick aspiring Alex on his journey to find a new lens. This is the comparison between the MEIKE 25mm f1.8 and the 28mm f2.8 lenses. First off, both lenses are in a great shape. The build quality is excellent in both, even though the 25mm has a nicer and thicker focus ring. Otherwise, all the rings are super smooth and a pleasure to use. The aperture ring of the 28mm one is more stiff though, which is better for keeping one aperture and making sure it really stays there, even when the camera is packed. This sliding of the aperture, which results in me having to check it every time, was also a complaint I had about the 25mm lens. The packages and accessory are basically the same on both lenses, just another print. Look-wise, I like the 25mm lens more because of the bigger profile and the larger glass, which fits better to my camera in my opinion. But now let's attach both lenses and go outside on a little comparison trip. First off, I really like both lenses. They are certainly usable and fun to use. As you can see, they produce footage with a very different character. I feel like the 25mm one is more neutral and the 28mm one has a more distinct look to it. What you prefer is of course up to you. A big critique I have about the 25mm lens is its sharpness while at the right aperture. Everything seems out of focus at f1.8, it's not usable. From an aperture of 2.8, footage begins to look much better already, but there are still these weird blurry spots. In addition, the aperture ring is easy to move and always moved while I was using the camera. This got me thinking, is it worth to have a f1.8 lens when this value is unusable? For all the comparison images, I was always using f2.8 or more, so I could get a relatively sharp image. The 28mm lens looks super sharp right from its widest aperture of 2.8. It's much sharper than the 25mm lens, but when the apertures are more close, the results get more and more similar. Furthermore, the 25mm lens has plenty of chromatic aberration, while on the 28mm one there's close to none at all. Personally, I don't care much about the chromatic aberration though. The 28mm lens has a, for me, beautiful contrast and separation. In addition, with its heavy vignette, it produces a very characterized image right away. In this regard, the 25mm lens is much more neutral, and if you want to match images from different lenses, maybe you should better take the 25mm one. Personally, I really like the strong character of the 28mm one, because it can make objects stick out to the rest of the frame. Color-wise, the 28mm lens is a little more red than the 25mm one. It has also an, in general, darker and more contrasty look. At aperture 2.8, it has a little spotlight in the middle of the frame in some photos. When shooting with the 28mm lens though, you definitely need much more light and a higher ISO, mostly even double of the 25mm one, even at the same apertures. I was very surprised by this difference. Also surprisingly for me, the 28mm lens still rules in low light situations. I can't point at what exactly it is, but the low light look from the 28mm lens is amazing to me. Even though the higher ISO means more noise, images are still more clear and sharp as with the 25mm lens. When noise reduction is turned off, the higher ISO also produces a film-like grain, which I really enjoy, but this is more dependent on the camera and its capabilities. So what's the conclusion? For me personally, it's the 28mm f2.8 lens that wins. I will keep it as my new default lens and return the other one. Because despite both having strong points that speak for them, I am a fan of the distinct look, the separation and the contrast, especially in low light. In general, the output of the 28mm lens feels more mature and unique to me. In addition, I can freely use any aperture without having to worry about blurry photos. This is one of the biggest critiques I have about the 25mm lens though. But the 25mm lens on the other hand has a nicer bokeh in my opinion. It needs much less light and has a better focus ring. Also, it just looks gorgeous on my camera. The wide aperture of 1.8 and its blurry photos are a deal breaker for me though. Maybe it's just my model that is this blurry, but when comparing, the 28mm lens totally rules in terms of sharpness. I have chosen my lens, and I hope I could help you in making your decision as well. Whether lens you buy though, you will receive an amazing package for the price you pay. Both lenses are highly capable and of very high quality for, remember, 80 euros, sometimes even less. And this is the end of my journey to find a new lens. Do you like one lens more over the other? Then make sure to see my separate review on it. Links are in the description. If you decided that you don't like any lens of them both, then don't bother to watch the other videos. Don't waste your time. Instead, watch other videos on my channel. And lastly, remember, you are capturing moments and make stories. Choosing camera gear is important, but it's nothing compared to what you actually do with it. Whatever camera or lens you choose, in the end, it's up to you to create something meaningful with it. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching and I see you in the next video.